Hello, my name is Shannon Carney, and I'm going to be going over avian influenza virus today. Here's a quick overview of my presentation. I'm going to be going over the definition of avian influenza virus, the classifications of the disease, transmission, symptoms, and how to clean up an outbreak. So what exactly is avian influenza? Avian influenza refers to an infection of birds with avian influenza type A viruses. These viruses occur naturally among wild aquatic birds worldwide and can infect domestic poultry and other bird and animal species. Wild aquatic birds can be infected with avian influenza A viruses in their intestines and respiratory tract, but usually do not get sick. However, avian influenza A viruses are very contagious among birds, and some of these viruses can sicken and even kill certain domesticated bird species, including chickens, ducks, and turkeys. Avian influenza A viruses can be divided into highly pathogenic HPAI and low pathogenic LPAI strains based on its ability to cause disease in poultry. Low pathogenic avian influenza is a natural infection of waterfowl that may cause minimal to no signs of disease in domestic poultry and wild birds and is not a serious threat. Highly pathogenic avian influenza A is rarely found in waterfowl, but causes severe disease in domestic poultry with high death rates. Influenza A viruses are divided into subtypes based on the two proteins, hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, H and N, which they carry on their surfaces. There are 16 recognized H types and 9 N types, and these are known to occur in a number of different combinations. Most of these combinations are low pathogenic. Only two types of avian influenza A viruses, H5 and H7, are known to include highly pathogenic viruses. Not all H5 and H7 influenza viruses are highly pathogenic, but H5N1 is. This form may cause disease in chickens and some other species of birds that affects multiple internal organs and has a high mortality rate that can reach 90 to 100%, often within 48 hours. This has affected numerous species of birds in Asia, Europe, and Africa since 2003. Avian influenza A viruses may be transmitted from animals to humans in two main ways: directly from birds or from avian influenza A virus-contaminated environments to people, or through an intermediate host, such as a pig. For direct bird-to-human transmission, avian influenza A virus can be transmitted through contact among and with poultry and their droppings, feathers, intestines, and blood. The greatest risk of infection for humans appears to be through the handling and slaughtering of live infected poultry. Here's a graph showcasing the cases of avian influenza A virus to the deaths resulting from that virus. Avian influenza can be transmitted from animals to humans through antigenic shift. Antigenic shift results when a new influenza A virus subtype, to which most people have little or no immune protection, infects humans. If this new influenza A virus causes illness in people and is transmitted easily from person to person in a sustained manner, an influenza pandemic can occur. Influenza A viruses have 8 separate gene segments. The segmented genome allows influenza A viruses from different species to mix and create a new virus if influenza A viruses from 2 different species infect the same person or animal. For example, if a pig were infected with a human influenza A virus and an avian influenza A virus at the same time, the new replicating viruses could mix existing genetic information, known as reassortment, and produce a new influenza A virus that had most of the genes from the human virus, but a hemagglutinin gene and or a neuraminidase gene and other genes from the avian virus. The resulting new virus might then be able to infect humans and spread easily from person to person, but it would have surface proteins different from those currently found in influenza viruses that infect humans. You can see an example of antigenic shift in the picture on the slide. Here is another visual representation of antigenic shift for those of you who are more visual learners. The spread of avian influenza A viruses from one ill person to another has been reported very rarely, and has been limited, inefficient, and not sustained. However, because of the possibility that avian influenza A viruses could change and gain the ability to spread easily between people, monitoring for human infection and person-to-person transmission is extremely important for public health. Infected birds can shed avian influenza A viruses in their saliva, nasal secretions, and feces. Susceptible birds can become infected when they have contact with the virus as it is shed by infected birds. They also can become infected through contact with surfaces that are contaminated with virus from infected birds. The reported signs and symptoms of low pathogenic avian influenza (LPAI) have ranged from conjunctivitis to influenza-like illness, like fever, cough, sore throat, and muscle aches, to lower respiratory disease, pneumonia. Highly pathogenic avian influenza (HPAI) has been associated with a wide range of illness, from conjunctivitis only to influenza-like illness to severe respiratory illness, which includes shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, pneumonia, acute respiratory distress, viral pneumonia, and respiratory failure. It also can include multi-organ disease, sometimes accompanied by nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, and even neurologic changes, like altered mental status and seizures. Infection of poultry with LPAI viruses may cause no disease or mild illness and may only cause mild signs, such as ruffled feathers and a drop in egg production, and may not even be detected. Infection of poultry with HPAI viruses can cause severe disease with high mortality rates. Both HPAI and LPAI viruses can spread rapidly through flocks of poultry. HPAI viruses in poultry can cause disease that affects multiple internal organs, resulting in my previously cited mortality rates of up to 90 to 100%, often within 48 hours. So what do we do with all those dead birds? All those dead birds pose a large environmental and public health risk through the risk of spread of disease and the large amount of decomposing bodies. When avian influenza outbreaks occur in poultry, depopulation or culling of infected flocks is usually carried out. The two most common methods to cull birds are to use carbon dioxide or to apply a foam similar to what is used to suppress a fire. Both processes quickly suffocate the birds. In addition, surveillance of flocks that are nearby or linked to the infected flocks and quarantine of exposed flocks with culling if disease is detected are the preferred control eradication methods. The heat and pressure from rendering kills any possible viruses present in a dead animal. The heat created through composting also kills any viruses. Poultry compost facilities typically include manure, straw, and dead birds. The resulting compost is rich in nutrients that can be used in crop fields. Burying the birds on site is a possibility, but there are concerns as to whether it would have any effect on surrounding water sources. Because the virus won't live long outside a live animal, any water concerns are about the decomposition of the animals, not the spread of disease. So what is the real risk level of avian influenza virus to humans? It poses a relatively low human health risk to humans as a whole. As I discussed before, H5N1 is the technical term for a particularly lethal subtype of avian influenza, and just one of tens of subtypes of the disease. H5N1 can be transmitted to humans, although this is very difficult unless they come into close contact with infected birds. Unlike seasonal influenza, in which infection usually causes only mild respiratory symptoms in most people, H5N1 infection may follow an unusually aggressive clinical course, with rapid deterioration and high fatality. Primary viral pneumonia and multi-organ failure have been common among people who have become ill with H5N1 influenza. Of the few avian influenza viruses that have crossed the species barrier to infect humans, H5N1 virus has caused the largest number of reported cases of severe disease and death in humans. In the current situation in Asia, Europe, and Africa, more than half the people known to have been infected with the virus have died. Most cases have occurred in previously healthy children and young adults. However, it is possible that only cases currently being reported are those in the most severely ill people, and that the full range of illness caused by the H5N1 virus has not yet been defined. That said, H5N1 has proved to be much less dangerous for humans than ordinary influenza. Between the beginning of 2004 until the end of December 2013, there have been 181 fatalities and 228 reported infections of avian influenza. Comparatively, 250,000 to 500,000 people die each year from ordinary influenza. Because of this, avian influenza poses a relatively low risk to humans. Thank you for watching my presentation, and if you'd like to learn more about avian influenza, please check out these sources.